The UFC has a problem. If you are a fan of meritocracy, if you are a fan of people getting the shots that they absolutely deserve, then the UFC has a big, big problem. Why is Stipe Miocic fighting for an undisputed title, coming off a loss 3 years ago? That was his last fight. While the interim champion has to sit there in the corner Ian Gary chair of the hotel room and watch it happen. Why did Marlon Vera get a completely undeserved title shot against Sean O'Malley when he had one win over Pedro Munoz? And Merab Dvalishvili and Corey Sandhagen were there and ready to go. Why did Chito Vera get that shot? Why did the UFC themselves admit to offering Leon Edwards 3 fighters? 3 fighters that were not named Bilal Muhammad. None of them were Bilal Muhammad. And they knew that all 3 fighters weren't going to be available. That's what they offered to Leon Edwards. And on top of that, before that, they gave Leon Edwards Colby Covington, who hasn't got a win in the top 15 of his division. Think about that. When Bilal Muhammad is on a 100,000 fight win streak. Why is Israel Adesanya getting a title shot when a former champion, Sean Strickland, is coming off a loss in his title defense when it's a split decision? And not only that, but Jared Cannonier still exists. And they're giving Israel Adesanya a title shot. The UFC title shot, I don't know what else to tell you. It's not the PFL. The UFC title shot is a business decision. And it's never been more of a business decision than it is currently in 2024. A year onwards from the parent company of the UFC, TKO, becoming a public company. And with the UFC in 2024 having to renegotiate its TV rights with ESPN going into 2025. Profitability is the main game of the UFC in 2024. I know it's always been, the driving force of the UFC's decisions, but it could not be more of a driving force than it is right now in 2024. With it being the first year of the UFC TKO group being on the stock market, and with them needing to re-sign a TV deal with either Netflix or ESPN or just put themselves out on the market. For 2024 to be raking in the profits is what is so important to the UFC right now, which is probably why we've seen such phenomenal pay-per-views and then every other fight card be at the apex where it's just the cheapest they can possibly run the UFC. Big pay-per-views, cheap fight nights. That's the UFC strategy for 2024. And with profitability being at the forefront, that means that fun and exciting matchups that are easy to cut promos for in sports bars and in social media all over the world. That is what the UFC is looking for. If they can take someone like Sean O'Malley, slap a belt on him, put him on promos all over the world, wonderful. If they can take someone like Islam Makhachev, who is that Muslim fan base, keep a belt on him, make sure he fights once or twice a year, put promos all over the world, wonderful. They look for fighters in certain regions that are just easy to consume for the market. One of the reasons why I believe Ilya Topuria was sheltered from fighting Max Holloway before he could get in there with Alexander Volkanovski. They need the casual sports fan to be able to glance up at the TV screen, see a face, recognize a face, and want to watch that weekend's pay-per-view, or at least keep their eyes on it on social media. The UFC is not the PFL. They do not have endless Saudi money to burn. Their entire purpose is making money, and a byproduct of that is that we get some fun MMA fights in between the Apex cards. Now that we've all been sufficiently fed the harsh truth on the UFC, it's time to get into the title of this video. And I'm sorry it took me so long, but it is the setup for what this video is about. How many wins does Conor McGregor actually need to get a title shot? The sport's highest paid athlete, who just did a movie, who's got the most consumable highlight reels for everything in the sport when it comes to the walkouts and everything done with Floyd Mayweather and Jose Aldo and the moments with Khabib. How many wins does that person need to get a title shot? What if the current champion is still the protege of one of the sport's biggest stars? And Khabib is one of the sport's biggest stars. He's from the same region. He's from the same team. It's the biggest rivalry in our sports history. What's the highest selling pay-per-view in UFC history? It's UFC 229, Khabib versus Conor McGregor. And they gave Marlon Vera a title shot. They gave fucking Marlon Vera a title shot when Sandhagen and Merab were there. They gave Colby Covington a title shot. They're giving Stipe a title shot. They're literally ignoring the current interim champion of Tom Aspinall. Do you know what interim means, technically, in the dictionary? Interim. It means for the intervening period. Tom Aspinall is technically the UFC's current heavyweight champion until John Jones is ready to compete again. And he's not getting the next title shot. So with all of that in mind, with all of that preamble, how many wins does Conor McGregor need to fight for a title? Just one. Just one win. And the UFC will give him his title shot. And you can 100% guarantee that if he loses the shot against Islam Makhachev, and he probably will, he will get a shot at the BMF belt against Holloway. The UFC will do everything they can to put any belt they can around Conor McGregor. That is the direction the UFC have been heading in with all of their belts, and it's the direction they're going to continue to head into. I can see it right now. They're going to put Conor McGregor in a 170 fight against Michael Chandler, which they've already announced. Mark Goddard is going to be the referee, which means if Mark Goddard is the referee, there's going to be a little handshake between him and Conor McGregor at the start of the fight, just like there was between him and Kamaru Usman at the start of the Colby Covington fight. And if there is any reason to stop that fight at all, Mark Goddard, the king of early stoppages, is going to get in there and he's going to stop that fight. And Dana White is going to be talking about how Conor McGregor has just had a rough run, but he's still one of the baddest men on the planet. And he is going to try and set up Conor McGregor versus Islam Makhachev. And if Islam Makhachev turns that fight down, which he very well may, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't, then they will try and set up Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway for the BMF belt. That is what the UFC's plans are going to be going forward for the future. And even if Conor McGregor loses to Michael Chandler, they might still try and set him up for the BMF belt. So let me know down there in the comments, how many wins do you think it's going to take for Conor McGregor to get another shot at the title, considering what the UFC have done over the last 12 months? If you enjoyed this video, go ahead, hit that subscribe button down there. And of course, I'll see you all in the next one.